Great catching up with my next guest, Dalton Rosta, who's back in action, taking on Aaron Jeffery, Bellator 298, August 11th. Dalton, how's it going, man?
Great. How are you?
Doing awesome. I'm looking forward to this one for sure. A little bit of a rivalry there, right? We got ATT against Killcliff. Of course, Aaron defeated your teammate, Austin Vanderford. Does that add a little bit more to this fight? Because it seems like this is a fight that was inevitable. It was going to happen at some point.
No, it's doesn't play a part at all. That's on Austin. That's Austin's fight. I'm not fighting for anybody but myself.
Okay, fair enough. What have you sort of made of Aaron's Bellator run so far? He's had a couple good wins, and then obviously had that setback against Salter in his last fight.
Yeah, I mean, he's only had 3 fights so far. I watched some of you guys' interview, and I heard him say that I haven't really fought anybody good yet, and his level of competition was better than mine. I disagree with that. Anytime he's fought somebody that is of high level competition, he's lost. He's 13-4. All 4 of his losses are to a high level competition. So I think he folds under pressure. He's a good fighter, but I think I'm better than him everywhere.
Stylistically, how are you looking at this fight?
Like I said, I think I'm better than him everywhere. So wherever this fight goes, I feel confident in my abilities.
Do you think he excels in any particular area? Is there anything you look at that could be, interesting in this fight as far as what he brings to the table?
He's just an MMA guy. So we're past the time where there were specialists. I feel you still have them here and there, but back in the day, you used to have like a wrestler versus jiu-jitsu guy, or wrestler versus striker, kickboxer versus wrestler, boxer versus jiu-jitsu guy. I think we're a little bit past that now. Everybody's pretty well-rounded. Everybody's typically an MMA guy, but there are still guys that come from a certain background. And I feel like if you grew up wrestling or you grew up boxing or anything, you have a head start, because not everybody just grows up doing MMA. It's something that you kind of get into as you get later in life, and you get a little bit older. And for me, I wrestled growing up and I boxed growing up, and I made the transition right after I got done playing football in college. I've been doing MMA full time now for about 6 years, but I've dabbled in jiu-jitsu since the time I was 12 years old, wrestled since I was 7, boxed since I was 11. So it's something I've been doing my entire life. And when I watch him fight, it seems like he's just, an MMA guy. He doesn't really specialize anywhere, and there's nothing, wrong with that. But like I said, whenever I watch the film, I just feel like I'm better than him everywhere. I grew up doing pretty much everything, and I think it's going to show in this fight.
I know you come from a big gym and American Top Team. There's a lot of training partners I'm sure you get a chance to work with. Is there anyone you're working with a little bit more than others as far as this camp?
So beginning of camp through to about 2 weeks ago, I was working with Johnny Evelyn a lot. And as you know, he's the champ in our weight class. Me and him have really good rounds. We go at it very hard, very high pace, going at each other. We're fighting. And then I've been getting some work in with Mike Lombardo. Mike Lombardo is more of the same style as Aaron Jeffery. Aaron Jeffery, has like the high guard and like all the little fidgety movement and likes to come forward. And that's what Mike Lombardo likes doing. So it's very similar. Mike Lombardo is just a little shorter. Aaron Jeffery's 6'2", Mike's 6 foot. So a little bit different in that respect, but he's a great look. And then I got some rounds in with Roman Feraldo too. And I've just been pretty much grappling with whoever. Towards the beginning of the camp, I was grappling with pretty much all heavyweights. And, I was joking around with them, calling myself like the heavyweight killer, because I was, putting it to a few of them. And I was having a little bit of fun with that. But as camp went on and my weight starts coming down and, I get closer to fight, I don't want to get hurt doing something stupid with some heavyweights. So I've been going with guys more around my weight, some 205 pounders, some 170 pounders here and there, just to get like the little speed differential and add another, facet to my game in that respect. And so in the grappling aspect, I've been going with pretty much everybody. And with sparring, I've been going with Johnny, Mike Lombardo, Roman Feraldo, and some, random people here and there, but mainly just those 3.
Okay, that makes sense. You mentioned Johnny Ublin. I saw he was working with Zuckerberg the other day. Did you get to do any rounds with him or anything?
No, Johnny traveled somewhere. I don't know where he traveled to.
Oh, okay, I
He's
wasn't sure if that
traveled
was in
side.
Florida or not.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
that wasn't in Florida. So at least to my knowledge, it wasn't in Florida. I know he said he was traveling somewhere, and then the next day I seen him post a picture. So I don't know where that was at. So unfortunately, I didn't get to get in on any of that.
Did that surprise you, or did you know that they were going to link up? Like, I don't even know how that came together.
I don't know how it came together either. But yeah.
Okay, so you just saw the photo on social media, like you didn't have the heads up or anything, or?
No, nothing. Me and Johnny are cool, but we're not like that close. Like it's not like we text each other and fucking like,
For sure. Yeah. Okay, fair enough. Yeah.
But yeah, that was pretty cool.
Another guy that I know doesn't really train with you guys because he's sort of at his own gym, but he comes in every now and then. Bo Nickel, obviously, we saw him win at UFC 290. What do you make of his progress? Like, it seems like he's learning MMA at a pretty rapid pace. I think a lot of us are excited to see him maybe fight a ranked opponent next in the UFC. Is that something you kind of look at just a little bit? Because obviously, I know he's an ATT guy, but at a different ATT.
Yeah, I mean, he comes down for his camps. Like, he'll spend a couple weeks here, but I've drilled with him. I haven't really sparred with him or anything. I've grappled live with him a couple years ago at the Mat Factory, actually, before he opened up his own gym. But he's good. He's a good wrestler. The grappling's coming along because of that, and he's still developing. So I think they should bring him on a little bit slower. But stylistically, if they give him a ranked opponent, depending on the opponent they give him, I think he can excel. But there's certain matchups that I'd probably stay away from as of now.
Yeah, I think so too. You gotta do the slow build. You can't do like they had that with bantamweight they had in the UFC. Raul Rosas, they're talking about him being a future champion, and he loses his second fight because that maybe wasn't the best matchmaking there, right?
Yeah, and then you look at somebody like Hamzat, who came into UFC and had 3 fights in 3 weeks or some 3 fights in a month, and everybody was raving about him. Everybody was going crazy, hyping him up, and then that train kind of died down, and he hasn't fought much recently. So I think he was doing well at first, but then he wanted to slow down to take that step up. And Hamzat, great fighter, great grappler, great striking, good all around. He's a great fighter, but I think probably his coaches or his manager or his team or somebody's holding him slow down a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I think also too, he had a bit of time off. He got COVID, right? There was all those scheduled fights with Leon Edwards. And then, it looks like now he's fighting at middleweight, which is interesting because obviously he had most of his fights at 170. But back to you though, your corner, how will that look going into this fight? Who's going to be in the cage with you?
Anderson Franca and Mike Brown. Same as always.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, figured as much. And how's this one playing out on August 11th? I know you feel like you're going to get your hand raised. How do you see it playing out?
I think I'm going to finish him.
Okay.
I heard him talking about him making the fight dirty, and he doesn't think I'm going to like it. I'm hoping for that, man. I grew up in a rough childhood. I used to fight every day of my life. There's people that come into this because they enjoy fighting. There's people that come into this because they need the money or they want to make money. I'm in it for a whole, plethora of reasons. And I grew up fighting. I love fighting. It's in my blood. I want to make money, I want to make a legacy for myself. I want to make a good career out of this. So I got plenty of reasons to do this, but I really love fighting. And if it's going to be dirty and it's going to be gritty, I'm welcoming it.
Okay. You mentioned Chimaev earlier. He's fighting Paulo Costa. I was just curious your thoughts on that fight, because that's sort of a good test for him at middleweight. We've seen him do well at 170, but as weight classes, they do make a difference. Yeah.
So what I heard from a few people, like Ikram Aliskerov fought Chimaev before either of them were in the UFC, and I was told that was at a catch weight of 175 because Chimaev was struggling to make 170 back then, and even for that fight at a catch weight of 175, from what I'm told, I don't know how accurate it is. I'm just going off hearsay, so I didn't check into this. You could fact check me if you want, but I was told he weighed in at 178 for a 175-pound catch weight. So he's struggling to make catch weights as well. So I'm probably thinking he's legitimately a welterweight. I'm sorry,
middleweight. Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
And he was fighting at welterweight, barely making it, and now I think he's moving up to probably a weight class that fits him better.
So do you think that's enough for him to take out a guy like Paulo Costa, who, I think some have felt maybe hasn't looked as good since losing to Adesanya?
Yeah. So when Paulo Costa first came in the UFC, you know, I thought his pressure was good. I thought so he carries a lot of muscle, but for somebody that carries a lot of muscle, he's able to put on a good pace, and like his cardio was holding up early in his career. It showed against Yoel Romero. And even though he did slow down, there's guys that will slow down and you see him cower away and they get tired, but there's also guys that push through it. You see, okay, they're tired, but they're still pushing forward. You know what I mean? And they're still fighting smart while they're pushing forward. They're not just fucking brawling. And that seemed like what Paulo Costa was doing at first. But with the fight against Marvin Vettori and then the fight against Israel Adesanya, then even his fight against Luke Rockhold, he hasn't looked the same. You know, he looked like super tired, super sloppy. His punches are he looks very unorthodox compared to like how he used to look. He doesn't look like he has as much power. He's not as strong. So I think Hamzat is probably going to come in here and either get the knockout or a submission. You know, I think he's probably going to make it look easy. And there's a lot of people who are like, oh, Paulo Costa is bigger. Yeah, that might be true, but that only plays so much of a part.
Okay. I'll take it from you, who actually fights in the weight class. That makes sense. And I just wanted to ask you.
Wrong though, you know?
No. Hey, listen, that's what makes it an interesting fight. I just think, I kind of look, personally, I'm just curious because, you know, Hamzat struggled with Gilbert Burns, who's, you know, used to fight at lightweight. I just wonder like how much that strength is going to translate to 185. You mentioned it though, like you said, he's had trouble making the weight. So we'll have to see. It's a very interesting fight because I think Costa doesn't look that great, but Chimaev
Burns, though is a really good fighter. I mean,
yes, absolutely. Yeah.
And like good striking, has power, you know, he's a gamer. He comes to fight, you know, he's not going to cower away. He's going to fucking sit there and brawl with you. So it's with somebody with that pedigree of grappling and with the training partners that he had in the gym, of course, he's going to have a good takedown defense and he's going to make it a tough fight. So you can't really judge that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay.
But like I said, I could be wrong. There was a time where I did like a deal with my bookie, a little sponsorship deal, and I made my picks and I put them all on Instagram, and every single pick I made was wrong. Mm-hmm. So they haven't had me back since.
It happens. I mean, look, how many times the fights you think go a certain way and then it goes the other way? That's what's so great about the sport. Anything can happen at times. But yeah, I wanted to ask you about the main event of that card, though. Actually, we got Islam and Charles. Do you see the rematch going any differently? How do you look at that fight? I know it's not your division, but just curious your thoughts on it.
Man, Charles has the weapons to beat Islam, but Islam's probably just going to take him down and do the same thing over again. You know, Charles looked a little scared on his feet. If he can keep it standing, I feel like he has the better striking than Islam. You know, Islam's pretty stiff. He's pretty basic. He's good at those basics, but he's not like, he doesn't excel anywhere on his feet. And I think if Charles can keep it there, and then if he gets to the ground, you know, actually throw up some threats this time, it might be a little bit different. But I think that Islam's probably going to take it.
And then back to your fight, you know, we've talked about this before, but the win streak you've been on, especially you go out there, you get a finish over Aaron Jeffery, like title shot. When are we going to be having that conversation? I know last time we talked and you're like, hey, I want to get a few more, but I mean, we're kind of getting to that point here where, I mean, it's going to be pretty hard to deny you a title shot if you keep getting wins.
Yeah. So I think probably this one and maybe one more. I got 2 fights left on my contract. And what I don't want to happen is me win this fight and then they offer me a new contract, we renegotiate, I sign, and then next thing you know, Johnny fights in September and then I'm not getting my title fight till next year. You know, I want to be active. I want to get another fight in this year. So logistically speaking, I would like to fight this one and then probably fight out my contract, or if they want to renegotiate a new contract and there's a stipulation in there where I fight this year and then I fight for a title, you know, where I fight for the title this year at the end of the year, if they can make that happen, then yeah. But I want to fight again this year.
Yeah, no, I completely understand. And what do you make of obviously all this news about a sale and all this stuff? Like, it's probably hard not to think about that a little bit of what your future could look like. I mean, you're in a good spot just with, you know, you keep on this win streak, but is that a little bit distracting? Just all the rumors you're hearing?
No, not at all. I had somebody message me the other day about it too, but I'm not paying attention to that. My job is to go out there and fight, and that's what I'm doing. Yeah. That's Bellator's business. You know, if they decide to sell to the PFL or whoever else, the UFC, whatever. I know the PFL rumors are on the table right now, but that's really up to them. I don't know what's going to come of Bellator if that happens, and I don't know how soon it's happening, but they have these events planned out, and at least my fight card is planned out. We know that's happening. If they happen to sell, I don't think they're going to fucking sweep that card under the rug. So I think I'm good. I think we're good. If that happens, we'll just, have to cross that bridge whenever we get to it.
Yeah. And again, like there's re-signing fighters. Like I saw they re-signed Pettis and stuff. So obviously it's still business as usual until something happens, but we'll see what happens there. Before we go, I know you're a big football guy. How are the Steelers going to do this season? The NFL season's right around the corner.
Yeah, I think they definitely make the playoffs, but there's still a lot of questions for me about Kenny Pickett. I'm not really sold on him. Najee Harris too. Like there was a lot of hype behind him. I don't think he's as great as, and this is just me being a realistic fan. I'm not, being a bandwagon guy or hyping up our players. Being analytical. He hasn't had the production that, we were expecting, and he got 1,000 yards last year, but it was on a lot of carries. But we do have a 1-2 punch with him and Jaylen Warren. So it's a little diversification in the backfield and causes defense to have to adjust. So I think our running game won't be a problem, especially since we added people to the offensive line and we added more weapons around us. We got that big tight end in the second or third round, whenever that was. So I think the biggest question is going to be Kenny Pickett. And if he excels, if he does well, even if he grows, 25% better than he did last season, I think we may get a couple rounds in the playoffs. If he surprises me and surprises a lot of people, as a lot of experts are projecting him to do, then I think there's a possibility we make it to the Super Bowl.
There we go. Hey, Dalton, thanks so much for doing this, man. I'm looking forward to this Super Bowl worthy fight coming up here on August 11th. If there's anyone you want to thank before we get out of here, any sponsors or any social media you want to mention, I'll give you the last word.
You can just follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Dalton Rosta. I post all my sponsors, all my partnerships, my coaches, training partners, everything there. So I'll leave all that for later. And I appreciate you having me on. It's always good talking to you. It's always a fun time.